Chicago, Illinois. What do you think of? You think of the Cubs? Do you think of the White Sox? Hopefully you don't think of the White Sox. That's bad news. Do you think of the Stanley Cup winning Blackhawks? No, ladies and gentlemen, you think of the Chicago Bears, who are going to win the NFC North in the next upcoming season, and that's what brings me to my next topic. We're going to be previewing the NFC North today, and we're going to be going over the 4 teams that are there in a division that's mainly, for the division lead, it's basically between 2 teams, I believe. Then the other 2 teams are kind of just there. The Chicago Bears. First thing I think of when I think of Chicago, I think of Bears as a bear in general. I just think of something that's very aggressive and fierce. And I think that fits the Chicago Bears because that's really what Khalil Mack is. The Bears were 12-5 last year. Mitchell Trubisky is their quarterback, and he had a decent season. He had a good passer rating. There is going to be a little bit of improvement that he's going to need to show. He didn't get sacked too much. He did throw for a lot of touchdowns. I do think that quarterback is a position that they're fairly set on, and then Trubisky's the guy that they're going to be working with moving forward. Back is going to be something that the Bears are going to struggle with a little bit. They have 3 different running backs that they're going to split the progressions with. Obviously, I'm sure that could change in training camp. But I think that helps a little bit because it makes it's a little bit harder to predict on defense. The rush defense of the team is going to be a little bit harder to predict because you got 3 backs kind of separating as opposed to just 1 and then your backup. Their receiving core was completely revamped last year, but it is going to have to get a little bit better. Allen Robinson, too, is leading the charge. The reason why I say it has to get better is because they didn't get too much separation off of their defenders, and yards after catch and things like that are very important in football because not every quarterback can throw 65 yards down the field. Defense, this is where the Bears have their strongest suit, and I think they might have the best defense in the league. Defensive line, you have Akeem Hicks as well as Khalil Mack. Both of them together averaged for 20-plus sacks last year. Akeem Hicks, I want to say, I believe, had 7.5 sacks, and Khalil Mack had 12.5. So Khalil Mack is, next to Aaron Donald, probably one of the best defensive players in football. He was great on the Raiders, and I think that they've been hurting ever since they lost him as the pass rusher. Their defense is their strong suit. Their wide receivers need some work, but they're getting there. They don't really know where their running back is headed, and the quarterback should be all right. So I think the Bears are a team that is primed off of their defense, as we all are pretty much well aware of, and their defense is so good that it took them. They should have beat the Eagles last year in the playoffs, but that did not happen. I do think that the Bears are going to win this division, and I think that they are going to have a good, lengthy playoff run as long as everything stays in suit. To go to the disaster of the division, and that is, to me, the Detroit Lions. This team has not won a playoff game since before my brother was born, and he is 25 years old. Matthew Stafford has been a credible quarterback. He's stuck with this organization for a while. I want to say this is his 10th or 11th season upcoming, but it's basically what have you done for me lately, and what have you done in general. Not football is. Everyone looks at your individual stats, but then they'll evaluate you based off of what you've done for the team, and that's how it should be. But Matthew Stafford is a very good quarterback. I just think that he hasn't had a single playoff win in his 10 seasons as a quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And it's going to make his job a little bit harder because they did lose Golden Tate in the offseason. He did go to the New York Giants. If he could have gone to any team and helped them, the Giants was the team for them to help. So he won't have that as a lethal threat in the receiving category. Like I said, Matthew Stafford, this is a team that really has to get the ball rolling. Stafford, I don't think, is the running back. This team actually traded up to get Kerry Johnson. He had the second most yards per carry in the league last year. And their second string running, LeGarrette Blount didn't do much. He was about as valuable as a bag of chips. They did end up getting C.J. Anderson as a backup, and I think that C.J. Anderson does have the talent to be a starting running back in the league, but I think that him as a backup, it just fits right. Like guys like him, Dion Lewis, they have all the talent in the world to start at that position, but I just think that they fit much better as a backup because they could really help out a lot. So Kerry Johnson is going to be taking the amount of work here. I'm assuming C.J. Anderson, and I think it's his spot to win. I know he's coming in as a backup, but I think that he's got the experience, and I wouldn't be surprised if he takes the keys to the kingdom here. The receivers are going to need some help. This is a core that needs a little bit of help. They do have a good tight end. Danny Amendola was a great wide receiver on the Patriots. But the problem is that Patriots have a system that's set to win, and everybody in that locker room, especially Brady and Belichick, make every single player into an all-star. And it's like, I don't want to say you're being catered because you're your own player, you make your own stats, but it's like when you leave New England, you go out into the real world, and not everything is picture perfect as it is in New England. Not saying the team doesn't have its troubles, but he had one of his worst seasons playing for the Lions. Marvin Jones Jr. is a quality receiver they do have, but he's got to stay healthy because injuries has been a problem of his. So their receivers are there's a lot of question marks there. Their defensive line, they do have one of the best defensive lines in the league. They have Damian Snacks Harrison, who they got from the New York Giants this past offseason. Trey Flowers as well. So their defense is it has its ups and downs, but it has been more quality, I think. Their defensive line is great. They have Darius Slay in the secondary, Quandre Diggs as well. So this team for me is just, it's really, there's flashes of hope. I wouldn't say this team, I don't expect this team to have 2 or 3 wins on the year, but a repeat 6-10 season wouldn't be so far-fetched, at least not from my standard. Like I said, they got a line, they got a defense, their receivers I've really got a question mark. They have a young running back, but everyone's as good as their first season, and then you have to play that second season. So we're gonna have to see where he's coming from there. This team desperately needs to sneak their way into a playoffs. I think they have a fan base that's getting impatient and they want change. Jim Caldwell was fired because I feel like each year under his coaching, they were 9-7 every year, and they were. You do have Matt Patricia coming in as his second year. They were, players weren't too fond of him being a little bit aggressive in training camp, and it was causing some problems. But yeah, the Lions are going to be in for a little bit of a rough year. I don't think they're going to be awful, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a 7-9 season. We have the Green Bay Packers. This team, it's like you look at certain things and you're like, wow, they could be this good, but in reality, they're this good. Matt LaFleur is going to be his first full season as the coach of the Green Bay Packers. They had Mike McCarthy the year before, and they fired him mid-season. I don't know exactly how late it was in the season that they fired him. They went 6-9-1 last year. And for the love of everything holy, we need to stop ties in football. They are screwing up the standings. They're screwing up the playoff prediction and picture. They got to stop because it's a headache that I don't think we need. Eventually, somebody will score a field goal. We do not need ties. Aaron Rodgers is favored to be one of the best quarterbacks ever and one of the best in the league. Some people will say he's won. I don't think so. I think Drew Brees is better than Aaron Rodgers. I just think that, Drew Brees didn't have the team that Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees didn't have much of a team to work with for many years, and, they're my Super Bowl favorite. But anyway, off topic. Aaron Rodgers, Father Time is not so much in his picture. The team is he's not getting any younger. He's getting 36, and he was, he's still Aaron Rodgers, but he was looking a little bit sloppy last year. Misfiring throws, throwing off his back foot, and he's one of those quarterbacks too where, if he gets hit the wrong way, he's definitely going to be down for a while. He's been injured a little bit, but when he's on the field and he's playing, he's been good. But we need to see a little more, dare I say, from Aaron Rodgers, and I think that, the player he was from 2011 to 14 was like leaps and bounds better than this one. I know that he may not have a lot to work with, but I think that's changed a little bit. The running backs, Jamal Williams runs the ball well, but he's not really favored to be as explosive as the other running back, where he is particularly, averaging a good amount of yards per carry. He's not maybe going to break through for a 30-yard plus run, or he's not going to take it to the crib. Aaron Jones is their other running back. He had 700 yards last year, 700 plus yards. He was averaging 5.5 yards per carry, so that's who they're probably looking at as their starting running back. Receivers, before Jordy Nelson, Packers haven't had a receiver, but Devontae Adams has really become a superstar. He had 1,300 yards last year, and I think when you're measuring the receivers' yard mark, I think that 1,000 yards would be considered a quality season from a receiver, and it really is going to depend on which receiver you're talking about. He had 13 TDs, 1,300 yards, so they have a superstar in Devontae Adams, and him working with Aaron Rodgers is definitely beneficial to him. Jimmy Graham has, I feel like ever since he left, is slowly declining, and his numbers are starting to show so. Right, yeah. And he's got a veteran presence, but he's declining, so you're not going to really expect to see so much from Jimmy Graham. Yes, he's there, he's in the mix. We'll see if maybe Aaron Rodgers can bring something a little bit better out of him. Defense, this team is, they have some weapons. Kenny Clark had 10.5 sacks the last 2 seasons, so he's definitely probably primed as their best defensive player. The re-signings of Smith, yes, that's 2 of them. Za'Darius and Preston Smith are both extended to longer contracts. Your secondary, you have Adrian Amos, who made a $37 million contract, and you have Jair Alexander, who is a rookie and did have a good season last year. So there are flashes in this team, but I think Aaron Rodgers, like I said, he's carrying the team, as most times the quarterback does. But it's gonna be interesting for the Packers. It's really hard to put your chips on the table and tell me where they'll land. I think that Packers are gonna be a little bit better than they were last year, but I just think that this is a situation where you need maybe a little bit more quantity than quality, because I think they have lethal threats, but they don't have enough. They need a little bit more in the receiving end. Running back might be all right, but I think that their receiving core's got to get a little bit stronger. They do have talent there, though. Last but not least in the division, there's something about the Minnesota Vikings that it's just, you put in, it's like Jenga. You have a good piece, you have another piece, and just when you get to the top, it's like everything falls down. This team, when I look at this team, I think that they have all the makings of a Super Bowl team, but I just think that Kirk Cousins kind of wasn't maybe adjusted to the system so much last year, but he wasn't really the problem. Mike Zimmer is a very defensive-minded coach, and that shows because the Vikings have an extremely strong defense. Kirk Cousins threw for over 4,200 yards last year, and he was getting his touchdowns. I think he had 24 plus touchdowns. You might have to don't quote me on that. But he needs to be a little bit more clutch, because there's been he's committed some key turnovers and interceptions, fumbles, and things like that when the lights are brighter. So I don't really know if Kirk Cousins would be the quarterback you really want in a playoff situation. and this is a team that I do expect to maybe be a wild card team, have they not won the division this upcoming season. Running back, there's really not too much going on here for the Minnesota Vikings. There's a lot of injuries. Nobody's staying healthy, and I think running back is going to have a bit of a question mark, and that they're going to have to try to maybe fix that a little bit. They have receivers. They have a bomb squad on the receiver end of it. So when you think of Kirk Cousins and 2 All-Star Pro Bowl receivers, well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs both received for over 1,000 yards on the year. They have a great tight end in Kyle Rudolph, who had 600 yards plus receiving. There's no reason to believe that they won't repeat that. Defense, this is the part of the team where I was really talking about. Daniel Hunter had 14.5 sacks last year. Daniel Hunter had 14.5 sacks last year. You got Everson Griffin coming back, Lionel Joseph coming back. You have defensive players there. Anthony Barr was going to be shipped to the New York Jets upon his decision, but he chose to stay put in Minnesota. So, you know, enjoy that cold, but it's a much better decision. You know, they got one of the better secondaries. Xavier Rhodes is a great corner, but he's had an off season. They do have Smith as a safety. So, you know, Harrison Smith has made the Pro Bowl as well. And they have Everson Griffin, like I said. So they have a quality defensive players. And I think that's really going to be their strong suit is defense, as well as their receiving core. You know, this team, like I said, it went 8-7-1 last year. Of course, if you can tell, they did tie with the Packers at some point throughout the season. Vikings are going to be good. I don't know if they're going to be great. I just think that this is a team that a lot of people sleep on, and I'm not one of those to do that. They have too much talent to not be good. So we're going to wrap it up here, and I'm going to say that the Chicago Bears are going to win the division. That would be your safe guess. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Vikings stole it. I think the Lions are going to have a repeat of the year before, and the Packers are going to be slightly better, but they are not going to be taking any division. So Chicago Bears is who I'm going with. That's going to be the conclusion of this. We're going to, I think we're going to the NFC South next on the next video. That should be fun. You know, you got the Falcons, Panthers, Saints, and Buccaneers. That's, you know, one of the worst divisions in football, actually. But we're going to get that rolling next video. So thanks for watching.